Hey Divas, it's your favorite Diva gal, Miss B McCarthy, here in sunny LA. I know you're wondering, what am I doing here in LA? Well, I'm here to interview the cast of Underground. I'm going to tell you all the secret gossip and secrets of what's happening in season 2. Stay tuned. So, Kato in season 1, we had this bipolar situation with their character. It's like we love you one moment and then we hate you the next moment. Okay. But what surprised you the most about your character in season 2?
His emotional drive this time. It's more internal. It's not about the things that happen to him. It's about what's going on in him. And I wasn't aware of how much pain and how much love and how much depth there was to him. I know that he's gone through a lot, but where the creators took him this season is just in a beautiful place, and it's ferocious, and it's definitely a 2.0.
So are we going to love him this season?
You're going to love him, yeah.
Oh, so he's going to get himself together.
Yeah, and he's going to break himself apart, and then he's going to get himself back together. And then he's gonna break himself apart.
That's what I love about it.
Put your finger, can't put him in a box.
Don't put me in a box.
Okay.
Don't put Kato in a box.
Don't put Kato in a box.
Just let him do what he does.
My next question is for you, Jasika. So, in season 1, we did not know who Georgia was. No, so now she's in season 2. So could you tell us more about your character and how is she in season 2? Like, what are we going to expect from her?
Georgia runs a boarding house that is one of the stops on the Underground Railroad. So that's the general reason why the other character stories intersect with hers, because they're traveling like Rosalie and Noah. But she also has she's the head of the sewing circle. Right. And it's a bunch of women who are actually trained in weaponry. Mm-hmm. And they are getting together to fight to support the movement to abolish slavery. Mm. So you get to see them like come together, talk about politics, making all these signs, figuring out strategies of how they're going to support the movement. And I love that they show women in an active role in this period of time, because you don't get to see women's perspectives that often. And you get to see Elizabeth's character's perspective as a white woman who obviously is free and is married to a man of, wealth, I would say, in general. She has a very different experience than these women, and so bringing her life experiences into the sewing circle group is really interesting, and you get to see like Elizabeth's dynamic change, and also how Georgia helps to influence her own thoughts about the movement and what action that she can take to help support it.
Do you personally see yourself in your role? Like, what personalities do you have that are the same?
I do see myself in this role in a lot of different ways. In one superficial way, I am a sewer, and I love to sew, and that's like a really fun thing.
This dress that she made.
Right,
yes.
Right.
In another way, I have benefited from the privilege that the color of my skin gives me. Mm-hmm. And that is a conversation that I really think is super important to have in terms of the way that people can exist in one community. Like the African American community does not look like one person, and lots of different experiences and histories in it, and all of them important, and none of them negating anybody else's, but also acknowledging the privilege that the way you look gives. Like when you are closer to a European ideal of beauty, you get privileges with that, and that is not something that you should ignore or say, well, I'm still black and bad things happen to me. Like, that's not what the conversation is about. Nobody's saying that you haven't experienced discrimination, but there is a certain amount of privilege and benefit that you get from that, and to be able to help do good even though you have that privilege, and to still support the people that don't have the same privileges and rights, I think is a really super important thing to talk about in the show.
There's a lot going on in today's world, especially with the Women's March that just happened in LA, New York, and DC.
Everywhere.
London and Australia.
Right. So my question to you both, what message do you have for women today who are still fighting for their rights and freedom?
That you got to keep fighting. That it's a constant thing that you have to actively participate in. That I don't know that there is a point where you can say this is enough. I think it's a work. It's always a work in progress. And I think you can't be complacent, as we can see by the effectiveness of the Women's March. I mean, it was a pretty incredible thing to witness, and it was women and supporters, supporters on all these different continents, and really having their voice heard, and in this case, in a very peaceful, positive way.
Most definitely. I mean, I was marching in New York
nice.
with an 11 and a 12-year-old, and like, just to say to them, I showed them, I said, you're a part of this, and showed them all the different countries.
Oh, yeah.
And just talk about the movements in general. I don't know if at that time we knew how many pictures were coming out yet, but just to kind of really just inform them, and as it came out, showing them the pictures, and they were like, this was happening everywhere?
Right.
And I said, yes, you are walking the steps right now. You are a part of history. And just to see them kind of stand up taller and realize that, and to make their signs. We were in Grand Central Station on the floor with markers, making signs, and to see what they came up with that were really positive statements of just really pride in themselves and of what it is to be a woman and the beauty of that and demanding respect and love and appreciation. And that was what was beautiful for me.
So let's talk about Miss Ernestine. So we know that her character, she's like in a whole new place in season 2.
Yes.
So I want to know if you could explain to us, how is she coping with her new living and state of mind in season 2?
It's hellish. It is hellish. She doesn't have her children. She's trying to figure out who she is now without that. I think a lot of people they've dealt with that when you've identified in a very particular way all your life, and then you have a major shift and change like that. Then it's just like, how do I see myself? It's like empty nest syndrome in the worst way.
Right.
And then this new plantation is going to introduce its own really struggles, So she once again is going to tackle some major issues, and I'm really excited about that, reading the scripts, to say I feel like there are going to be a lot of tweets of just like, I went through that, and just the encouragement of really persevering, how she perseveres.
So I watched episode 1 of season 2 yesterday. Elizabeth, oh my gosh. So there's a big shocker at the end. Can you tell me, how does your character evolve in season 2?
Well, I mean, there's just no going back from that. So it's a question of how far do you then go, forwards, and what path does she take? Obviously, Elizabeth's husband would he's trying to sort of battle this with the courts, through policy and politics. And for Elizabeth, it's a question of whether or not that is the right path, or if there is an alternative. And is that a very dark path? Is it a reckless way forward?
Underground is such a powerful series within itself. What was most difficult for you to direct, as far as each scene and each powerful scene as it go? What was the hardest for you, do you think?
I think one of the most challenging scenes for me that really was beyond emotional and surreal was season 1, when Rosalie got whipped for trying to speak up for her younger brother and protect him. Right. That was one in which we talked about a lot, and just trying to understand what that scene meant, how we were to approach it. Journey and I had many conversations collectively with Misha and Joe, and just even, amongst ourselves. And I don't think you can really prepare for these moments, is you can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it until the moment comes when it's to be literally unveiled and the kabuki drops. It's like, it was such a magnitude of emotion. The stakes were so high for everyone, I think. Even everyone was so compelled and engaged in that moment of just standing on the fringes of the set, on the frame lines, and just watching her just absolutely so wonderfully performed, but just dealing with the story in which she was telling during that that scene was just beyond something that you would ever imagine. And hearing the crack of the whip, when the overseer was was hitting her with creating all those lashes, and seeing them just kind of appear, and it's just beyond anything. And it's such a surreal moment. I think we know about these times that happened, and and we've even seen them before, but I think when you actually experience it firsthand, there's nothing like it. It's such a difference in actually doing it.
My next question is for you, Aisha. So it's a 2-part question. What was your first reaction when you heard you're playing Harriet Tubman? And what does that mean to you to play such a powerful role?
My first reaction when I heard that I was playing Harriet Tubman was, of course, to be filled with emotion, and I wept. And I distinguish that from crying because I associate crying with anguish, and this didn't feel, it felt, the tears were flowing, but it felt like something had cracked open inside of me. And I soon realized that it was about letting something in, and it was the spirit of Harriet Tubman, which playing this role means more to me than I could really truly articulate. It's a great honor, but it's also a tremendous call to duty. The research was exhaustive, of course. You know, I tried to inhale as much literature as I could about her.
Did you learn anything new?
I learned a wealth of information, that that I'm happy that I learned. You know, that excited me about her in a way that you know, that enriched, that added to the excitement that I already had about her. Just small details about her was just so beautiful to uncover, and so I'm excited that the season will reveal all of these little details about her. You know, things about her as a child, and you know, her spirit of resistance even as a young child. Just learning about her as a sister, learning about her friendships, learning about her as a daughter, learning about her as a woman, learning about how she laid her edges, just learning all about her. You know, she's a tremendous woman, and I gotta say that, you know, the end result, the performance that comes out of this was so much less about how well I studied and so much more about my ability to surrender.